Hi there, welcome to the Upcycle Design Lab. My name's Cindy and I craft using recycled and repurposed materials to give you ideas on ways to make and create more economically and ecologically. Today I'm downstairs in my craft room, and I know you probably think it looks like a room of a 12-year-old, but a few years ago I did several upcycled projects to make my very own Alice in Wonderland themed craft room. But today I'm going to be sharing all of the upcycled jewelry projects that I've made over the years. And one of the great things about them is that most of them can be made with some pretty inexpensive tools. So I've broken down all the projects into 6 categories. Some of them are made from paper tubes, magazine pages. I also have some glass projects, some projects made out of tin cans, old watch parts, and some aluminum can jewelry as well. Now, not everything I'm going to show you today has an actual full tutorial on it. Most of them do, and I will link those in the description box, so be sure to check that out at the end of this video if you're interested in making one of your own projects. First up are these paper cuff bracelets made from paper tubing, and they're just, the paper tubes aren't quite long enough if you cut them. They're a little bit small, so these bracelets are shaped around a tin can, and I layered 3 layers and kind of pieced them together to make them about 7 to 7.5 inches long so that they would be a better size as far as a cuff bracelet goes. And then I just had some fun decorating them. This one has split peas and long grain rice on it. I don't know if you can tell what this one is, but it's got just rubber bands wrapped around it, sort of in a random way. I've got this plain one here, and this one's decorated with some coiled paper and some silver buttons. And then they're spray painted, and I did a little bit of a black, sort of black antique wash finish on them. Next up is the paper beads, and what I love about them, and actually all of these projects, is that there's just so much versatility that you can do with them. I've made bracelets, earrings, necklaces. You can make them in all different colors and sizes and shapes. There's just a ton of things that you can do with paper beads. Now, when I made these, I did not have a bead roller. I have one now, but when I made these, I just used a wooden skewer, or if I needed a smaller hole, I used a toothpick to wrap the beads around. For mine, a lot of these, I just used the color of the magazine from the magazine page, and I think that they turned out really pretty. To decorate some of these, I did paint them. I think this one was sort of an experimental thing that I did. I painted them with some extra fingernail polish that I had left over. These bracelets I made as sort of a fun Steeler fan set, and I had these punches. I think they're Martha Stewart punches. I got them secondhand, so they weren't terribly expensive, but you can certainly add some decorations that way as well. Another thing that might help if you're working with paper beads, you probably want a paper trimmer, but these are not terribly expensive, and it'll just make the paper cutting go a lot faster. And then if you're working with any jewelry findings, you're definitely going to want a couple pairs of needle nose pliers just to work with the jewelry rings, the jump rings. The glass jewelry projects are a little more expensive to get into, but if you are interested in learning to fuse glass and you've never done it before, this is still one of the most economical ways to start fusing glass jewelry. So to do this, you're going to need a microwave kiln. I've done a lot of videos on my microwave kiln, but basically it just is a 2-piece little container that you put in your microwave, and it gets hot enough to fuse the glass. You're also going to need a scoring tool. I use these wheeled tile cutters a lot to cut my little pieces of glass. And then you might want a bottle cutter as well. This is a sample of some of the fused glass jewelry that I've made over the years. And I am not a professional jewelry maker or glass fuser, but I still had a lot of fun just kind of playing around with some different ideas. I've mixed colors and just done some wire wrap on them. I've used tiny little pieces and cut out a frame to glue them on from plastic bottles and things. Again, here's just a sort of a hodgepodge of mixed glass. I've also used coiled wire and then tiny little fused glass pieces to make some different designs. This is a fun one. It's hard to see, but you can actually, with the kiln, also make little imprints of designs. I have a little heart shape here, and then the pendant spells out the word love. It's pretty subtle, but you can see it in certain light. And then some of my newer projects are over here. I made these silly little color pop earrings, a couple of different pendant shapes. And then I also made these fun colored rings that you can wear as pendants and also use them to hold your eyeglasses. Years ago, I collected some broken watches because I'd seen somebody make a little charm bracelet like this one, and this is one that I made for myself. Unfortunately, my crystal broke here, but it's fun to just make picture charm bracelets out of the watch casings themselves. So I bought some broken watches to make some bracelets out of. And because I'd removed the faces of the watches, I started thinking, what can I do with them? And I decided to make some watch face earrings, which is what I've done with these. These watch face earrings are some of my best sellers as far as crafts that I've ever sold. And the only thing I do with them is I just try to kind of find similar shapes or sizes to pair them up, and but they never match perfectly. And since I had extra watch casings from making the watch face earrings, I also made some different pendants in sort of a little diorama shape, and you can use these to put your own photographs in as well. So those are some of the pieces of jewelry that I've made over the years using watch parts. Last November, I attended my first craft show, and most of the things that I took were made from tin cans. And the earrings that I made from tin cans were actually, again, one of my best sellers. And what I like about this project is that you can start with some very limited tools. I made most of the jewelry just using some tin snips and needle nose pliers, a hammer, a flat head screwdriver. But you can also add additional tools that I'll show you in a minute if you want to get a little fancier. So all of these earrings are made with just those basic tools that I showed you. I start by cutting out this shape with the tin snips, and then in some cases I just curved them around a broom handle or something to make a kind of curved shape. I doubled up on the shapes, making, with smaller and larger pieces, and folded them down the middle with a couple of pieces of wood. These are just teardrop shapes that are rolled with the needle nose pliers to make them into sort of more of a drop bell shape. And you can see I did them in a couple of different sizes. I think these two turned out looking a little bit like leaves, but to make them, I just used the hammer and the flat-headed screwdriver to kind of emboss the leaf pattern design into them. And then in some cases, I've used just the raw tin can, and in other places I went ahead and did a little bit of painting to color the earrings. If you want to, you can get fancier with some additional tools, and this is a dapping and doming block. And what it does is it allows you to take circular pieces and kind of put a little bit of a curve in them to make them more three-dimensional. So that's what I did with these particular earrings. You can also buy punch and die sets which allow you to punch holes in the center of circles. So in this case, I used the dapping and doming block to kind of give these a three-dimensional look, and punched a hole in the center as well. And finally, you can do some engraving if you want to. I added a couple of slogans to these. This is another just different size of earrings that you can make. And to add this engraving, I have just a little alphabet punch set. And I recently got this bench block with a little hammer to go with it that allows you to engrave onto different metals. So those are some things that you can add if you really like working with metal jewelry. Last up is the aluminum can jewelry, and if you're going to be making aluminum can jewelry, I recommend getting these three things. You're going to want a bead roller, some alcohol ink, and then this little gizmo is called a draft top. And what it allows you to do is get to this top ring and remove it from the can and remove the inside of the lid. So here's what I'm talking about. the draft top allows you to get to just this top ring of the can, and then you can use that to make some fun big hoop earrings. And most of the rings you'll find are silver, but if you pay attention, you can also find some of the cans have a top ring that is more gold colored. So those are just some basic hoop earrings that you can make. But I've also had fun playing around kind of decorating the rings. So here I just wrapped a bunch of beads around them with some wire. You can wrap cording around them. In this case, I just used some thinner wire to wrap around the hoop itself. And this was a little trickier, but I cut the ring and slid on some beads and then hooked the ring back together to make this style of earring. You can also use this bottom portion of the can, and I made some different large pendants using just 2 pieces of the bottom of the can. But you can also use the aluminum can itself by flattening the walls of the can. You can cut shapes and roll different beads just like you would a paper bead, but you definitely want the bead roller for this. And you can't tell this from the video, but what is nice about these beads is that they just have a really nice weight to them that you don't get with paper beads. And they do have a metallic look because they are metal after all. So these are just 3 styles that I made. I made sort of a flat version. This one's sort of a fatter pony bead, and then I have a skinny version of that same size. And once you have a lot of beads rolled, it's really easy to color them with the alcohol inks, and you can get some really pretty colors, as you can see from the range of cans here. You can also just use the outside of the can. This is a Pepsi can, you can probably kind of tell, but the rest of them are rolled with the inside of the can out, so they're just the aluminum color, and then with the alcohol ink you can add all kinds of pretty colors. And with my beads, I just made some different bracelets and some earrings. I hope you enjoyed today's jewelry roundup and that you were inspired to make some jewelry of your own. Be sure to check out the description box for the tutorials and let me know which one is your favorite in the comments. Thanks so much for watching. I hope to see you back here soon in the lab.